Okay, so I'm here at the Miami Blockchain Conference, and I'm with Brian from PIVX. Now, I didn't really know much about PIVX. I knew it was a privacy coin, and I've just been speaking to Brian for 10 or 15 minutes, and it's actually pretty mind-blowing. So I'm just going to ask him a few questions for you guys now.
Hey guys, how you doing?
So that's Brian. Okay, Brian, so what does PIVX have over the likes of Monero, Verge, Zcash, etc.?
Yeah, so again, thanks for doing an interview with us real quick. As I like to say, I don't really like to use the term what's over, what's better, what's worse. I like to describe some of the amazing features of PIVX and then let you all draw your own conclusions, right? Like it's information and it's giving it. So PIVX stands for Private Instant Verified Transaction. We were a non-ICO launched in 2016. So it was non-ICO, no pre-mine, no insta-mine coin, one of those OG cryptos that came out with a focus on being a useful currency, right? And so there's a lot of aspects of it. So obviously the privacy aspect is going to be a big feature, and we'll talk about that. PIVX, unlike most of the other privacy coins out there that you just mentioned, it's proof of stake, right? So PIVX was the first proof of stake coin to implement zero coin and also have masternodes. So the zero coin protocol is a academically vetted protocol that came out of Johns Hopkins, actually originally for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's not private, as we know. So the PIVX developers actually were the ones that implemented zero coin into a proof of stake algorithm in the first place. So many of you, if you don't know what proof of stake is, with proof of work, right, the mining aspect where you've got a lot of mining power and hashing, etc., you're not in control of your currency, right? If the miner stops, what happens to your blockchain? So you might have coins, but most people forget that they're not actually in control of the currency itself. You're in control of a token. You're not in control of that blockchain. With PIVX, you actually, if you download the core wallet, are running the entire blockchain. So you're in control of the currency. If all 100,000 nodes go offline and you still have your computer running the PIVX blockchain, it's still going. You're still in control, right? So what does that mean? It means it's much, much more energy efficient. You can run the entire PIVX network on the power from literally less than the power from one wind turbine, 15 solar panel installations. Bitcoin, I think it's been estimated or whatever, it's around running a nuclear power plant 24/7. That's the amount of power that entire network consumes. That's not sustainable for the long haul. It's not good for the environment, for us collectively building a better future. So that's one of the things that I think makes proof of stake really, really robust and incredible is, guess what? Now you are part of the community actually running the entire blockchain. So since we don't have miners, who gets the reward? You do. The people who, the Pivians, the people who are part of the community actually running the entire blockchain themselves. And so you might be asking, well, how much memory does it take? It's around 2%, so if you're running your desktop or your laptop, it takes about 2% of your memory usage. It's not a lot, it's basically an idle program that runs in the background. So with that, when you put PIV into that core wallet, you're called staking, right? It's not on an exchange, it's in your core wallet. That's called staking. And as a bonus for doing that and helping to secure the network, you get the block reward, right? You have the ability to earn the block reward. So now you have a coin, PIVX is a cryptocurrency, where you control the currency, you get rewarded for it, and you are actually in control from a governance decision-making process. So you might ask how that's possible. We are what's considered a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. We have a built-in governance mechanism where anyone can submit a proposal into the PIVX community and get it funded, right? So like a trip like this, submit a proposal, get it funded. You want to be a core developer, put a proposal in, get it funded. You want to do a third-party application that uses PIVX, submit a proposal, community votes yes, get it funded. So that allows basically this beautiful organization, this swarm hive mentality of empowering people to be involved and make decisions themselves. So you have a cryptocurrency you control, you get paid to control and be part of, and you get a voice to talk about it, right? So that's a cursory overview of PIVX. There's some pretty other awesome aspects to it from an economic model standpoint, right? So for there to be a currency, you need liquidity. you need volume, you need velocity, you need supply. We have a hard-coded 4.5 PIV block reward emission every 60 seconds, okay? So that's the block reward that goes out to the stakers and also the masternode holders, which I haven't talked about, we'll come to that. So that block reward goes back to the community, basically. That's a linear emission rate forever, unless it's changed by the community, but for right now, it's forever. Since we don't have miners, we don't need to pay transaction fees to incentivize the miners to keep going. So what do? We burn them. And what I mean by that is, every time there's transactions in the PIVX network, those coins, that little transaction fee is destroyed. So you might be asking, how much is it? Well, to send $1 or to send $1 million right now in PIVX would cost you about 1/10 of a cent. It's pretty much minuscule.
That's cheaper than Ripple, right?
Yeah, it's whether or not it's cheaper than Ripple, it's like, it is on par with basically being nothing, okay? So what happens though is this, it's burned, right? That transaction fee isn't going to a miner, that's not you to control the blockchain, it's burned. So at 4 transactions a second, 4 of our privacy transactions a second, remember, 4.5 PIV are being emitted by the block reward. At 4 transactions a second, we will actually go coin supply negative and neutral, meaning more PIVX are being burned every second and every 60 seconds than are being created. So it is a cap that's deterministic on use, on real world use, on people using it. And so from an economic standpoint, you are setting up an environment that's fast, that's low transactional fees, and that's actually potentially deflationary. So people have said, well, what happens if you're burning, tens and hundreds of PIV, and you see your coin supply just going down, 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 down? Well, at that point, let's say it's in 6 months, let's say it's in a year, in 2 years, the value of PIVX is probably going to be gone through the roof. And at that point, the community, whether or not it has, irregardless, that's not a word, regardless of that, we could elect to say, let's reduce the transaction fees. Let's make it 0.0001, right? Or some minuscule amount, or build an algorithm that says we want to peg it to a 3.5–4% inflation rate, which is what most economists have said. That's a really, really good inflationary rate to keep supply, to prevent people from just holding and hoarding. Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, too, you actually don't have to have any PIVX. If you want to get involved in crypto or in PIVX, you can come into our community. There's a bunch of social tasks, which are basically bounties. You can earn PIV. You don't have to have any money in terms of fiat currency. You can earn PIV, start staking it, and now you're on your way. Now you're part of this whole ecosystem, right? So the vision for PIVX is being a global crypto community and currency. We spent the past year building micro-communities around the globe. This is our first year of really going to events and getting out and talking to people. It's robust. And if you haven't looked at the roadmap for 2018 for PIVX, go. What's coming out for security, for privacy, for benefit of the PIVX community and Pivians in it, it's tremendous.
Cool. Okay, just one quick question. What about transaction speed? How long does it take for me to send that money from peer to peer?
Less than a second. You can do an instant send. You can do an instant send, like it's instantaneously. If you want to wait for full confirmations, it'll show up in less than a second. It'll be fully confirmed within a minute.
That's absolutely incredible. How long does Bitcoin take?
I'll get back to you on that answer.
About half an hour, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this whole privacy coin thing, the biggest challenge from my point of view is going to be government regulation. Governments do not like these privacy coins because they're not transparent. They can't view the transactions, they can't tax them, things like that. So what are PIVX going to do to address when the governments come and say, okay, we're banning PIVX because it's not transparent?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So right off the bat, PIVX is, privacy is a right? So you have the option to send your PIV private or not. So if you send a normal PIV, it is what would be considered a fully transparent transaction. You also have the ability to send it using ZPIV, which is in-wallet. That is the anonymous transaction that has no linking back to you, to your information, to your accounts, etc. So part of it is, that's right away, we have that layer provided. The second aspect is developing these relationships with governmental agencies to begin to inform them and educate them about how this can be used. The third is this, is without people, without relationships, all this stuff doesn't matter really, right? Like a blockchain technology is incredible, but if you don't have a connection, if there's no people, if there's no community, what's the point, right? You might have a couple whales that make millions of dollars, but for making a change in the world, there's no core resonance. So what we spent the past year doing is fostering, encouraging, incentivizing, and building these micro communities around the globe. Why? Because you have the power. We all do, right? We often say PIVX is a coin for the people, by the people. You're a coin holder. You control the blockchain. You're getting paid to do it. The more, and as we've seen communities on their own just erupt in Cancun, in South Africa, in Australia, in Tokyo, in Japan, you hold the power, right? So how many times have governmental agencies said they're going to do one thing and then they go and do another, right? How many times have they abused the power, and how many times have we abdicated our power and not actually use it for benefiting ourselves and benefiting our communities around us? So part of what PIVX is about is empowering people to see the world differently, see themselves differently in relationships to community, to finance, to technology, and even to what does a government mean, right? Who do we mean in this ethos of governmental structures, etc.? So should and if a time comes when the government says, we're still good, okay. Should a time come when they say these are banned, these are unlawful, then perhaps that's a time when we as a human race and a species and people and as a community say, that doesn't make sense. That really does not make sense with the core values and ethos of who we are as people. So that's a question, that's an answer that I can give you, and then it's a future question for all of us as we enter into these spheres of what matters most.
Yeah, well, there was a really good speaker here yesterday, and he came out at the end and he said, enough is enough. If people can't control their own wealth, people are not free.
Yes.
And like the crowd went up. Okay, so from what I've heard, PIVX sounds like the ultimate payment solution, the ultimate cryptocurrency. So if it becomes this, what kind of scalability issues do we have? Can you scale to meet demand of all these transactions if millions and millions of users start coming on board?
Yeah, so that's another great question. So right now we are 2 megabyte block sizes, so we're already double what Bitcoin can handle. Our transactions, I think we can handle currently, right now, on our systems, 120 transactions a second. We've had more. I think we've gone up to 1,000. There was a massive influx at one point. On our 28 roadmap as well, we are the developers are going to implement elastic block sizes, right? So what that allows is the network to expand and contract to deal with fluctuations in volume and actually deal with and ramp up of transactions per second. So yeah, should and when the time comes for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 transactions a second, PIVX will be able to meet that demand.
Because I mean, if by chance you get on board with the likes of eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, you're going to have to scale the hell out of it. You're going to have to process so many transactions. Do you think that's possible for PIVX?
I believe it's possible, and with what the developers are putting out, I look forward to seeing their answers to that question as well. So already with elastic block sizes, they'll be able to handle it. The bigger thing for me that I'll look at is we're no longer going to be dealing in PIV, right? Because the value of a PIV is going to be through the roof. So all of a sudden we're going to have to get used to dealing with micro PIVs, right? Like people used to send Bitcoins back and forth like it was nothing. It would be there in, a matter of minutes or seconds, and that was it. Now we're dealing with tenths of Bitcoin, right? Now we're dealing with
Satoshis.
With Satoshis,
yeah.
Right? So now what's going to happen with PIVX is when we hit those thresholds, we're going to be dealing with micro PIV, macro, you name it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Brian.
Absolutely.
It's been amazing. Some really good answers there. Anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you all for watching, for listening. Again, if you have any questions, come into PIVX, into our community. A lot of us are in Discord. We do have a Telegram channel. Our support team's phenomenal. And as I always say, keep it purple. That's a way to say, keep yourself. Find your core, find your resonance, and be yourself unabashedly. So,
wow.
Thanks,
Brian. Awesome. Ciao.
Bye, guys.